Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at this idea of the placebo effect. And we're going to be going through a couple books by Dr. Joe Dispenza, specifically, You Are the Placebo and Evolve Your Brain. And the big question we're going to be trying to answer here is it actually possible that your thoughts can heal your body?
Well, it's a really fascinating question, one that's been debated for centuries, really, by scientists and healers. But Dr. Joe presents some really compelling evidence through both scientific research and real-life stories. It really suggests that our thoughts are a lot more powerful than we tend to realize.
I've got to admit, I always get a little skeptical when something sounds a little too good to be true. But I mean, Dispenza's own personal story is pretty hard to ignore.
It's definitely a powerful place to start, yeah. So after a really bad cycling accident, Dispenza ended up with a severely compressed vertebra, and doctors recommended surgery. They even warned him that he might never walk the same way again. But Dispenza, he decided to take a very different path.
Yeah, he opted to try and tap into the power of his own mind instead. So he used things like meditation, visualization, and a really carefully planned regimen. And it's incredible, he totally defied those medical expectations. He made a full recovery in just 10 weeks.
It's really quite amazing. And that whole experience is what led him to explore the science behind the placebo effect. And he really wanted to teach others how to use it. What's really interesting is that he doesn't just say use your mind along with conventional treatments. He suggests that we can actually become the placebo ourselves.
I mean, that's what really jumped out at me when I was reading these books. Like, is it possible that we can just tap into this innate healing capacity that we all have? But before we get too far into that, I think it's important to kind of like step back and define what exactly is the placebo effect?
Right, so I guess the classic example would be the sugar pill. So it's something that contains no active ingredients, but it can produce real changes in the body when the patient believes that it's an actual real medical treatment. But the placebo effect goes way beyond just sugar pills. It's about how our beliefs and expectations can actually have a real physical effect on us.
And Dispenza has some pretty amazing examples of this in his book, You Are the Placebo. Like, he talks about Parkinson's patients that actually regain motor skills after they were injected with a saline solution, but they thought they were receiving real medication.
Right, and that really shows that it's not about tricking the body. It's actually about triggering a genuine physical response in the body through the power of belief. And there's another example, this one about Mr. Wright. His tumors actually shrank dramatically after he was given a placebo, but he thought it was a miracle drug.
Wait, so the tumor shrunk just from him thinking the placebo was real. So what happened when he found out it was a placebo?
Well, when Mr. Wright was told that he hadn't been given an actual drug, the tumor started to grow back. So it really shows how powerful our beliefs are. But it brings up this question, how is it possible for a thought, a belief, to have such a real physical effect on the body? It seems almost impossible.
I know, right? It's like something out of science fiction.
Yeah.
But Dispenza really grounds all of this in science. And there's actually a really long history of research on the placebo effect. It goes all the way back to World War II.
Absolutely. And this guy, Henry Beecher, he's a really important figure in that research. He was a surgeon on the battlefield. And during the war, he was dealing with these huge morphine shortages. So at some point, he kind of got desperate and started giving wounded soldiers saline injections instead of the morphine.
Wow. And what happened?
Well, he was astonished because he saw this placebo effect firsthand. Even though the saline solution was totally inert, it actually gave a lot of the soldiers pain relief,
Yeah,
just because they believed they were being given morphine.
that's incredible.
Yeah. And because of his experiences during the war, Beecher became a huge advocate for using randomized controlled trials in medical research, specifically because of this powerful placebo effect that he kept seeing. His work really was a turning point because it showed just how big of an impact the mind could have on the body.
So the placebo effect isn't just like, some kind of fringe idea. It's
Yeah.
really a real documented thing,
Mm.
like a pretty solid foundation in science. But how does it actually work? Like, how does a thought become a physical reality in the body?
Okay, so this is where neurobiology comes in. And a lot of it has to do with understanding this idea of conditioning. So basically, repeated experiences and beliefs and expectations that we have can create these really deep associations in the brain. And those can lead to these automatic responses.
So what you're saying is if we believe that a treatment's going to work, our brains might actually release, like, hormones and neurochemicals that can create a healing response, even if the treatment itself doesn't actually do anything.
Exactly. Our brains are incredibly adaptable, and they're constantly learning and responding to the things we experience. And a key part of this whole process is the autonomic nervous system.
Okay, so remind me, what does the autonomic nervous system do again?
So the autonomic nervous system basically controls all those automatic functions of the body, like your heart rate, digestion, breathing, all that stuff.
Right.
And here's the interesting part. Even though that system's mostly working in the background without us really thinking about it, it's actually really sensitive to our thoughts and emotions.
Oh, wow. So this is where we start to see the connection between the mind and the body. So are you saying that if we really believe in something strongly, like let's say we believe that some treatment is going to make us better, our thoughts can trigger the autonomic nervous system to actually create change in the body?
Exactly. And those changes can be really significant. Like, think about the fight or flight response. So, if we perceive a threat, even if it's not a real physical danger, it can trigger all these hormones to be released. And that gets the body ready to either fight or run away.
Right, so that's our mind influencing the body in a very real way. And it makes me wonder if our thoughts can trigger like a stress response. Could they also maybe trigger a healing response?
That's exactly what Dr. Joe Dispenza is exploring. He says we don't necessarily need some external treatment to start this kind of response. We can actually create it ourselves by intentionally changing our thoughts, our beliefs, our expectations.
So what you're saying is we can like potentially think our way to being healthier. Okay, I'm starting to see how this ties into the idea of you or the placebo. But how much control do we really have over our own thoughts? I mean, so much of our thinking is just like automatic, right? Like we don't even realize we're doing it.
That's a really good question. And it leads us into this fascinating field called epigenetics. And epigenetics basically looks at how our genes can be influenced by the environment and by the things we experience. See, our genes are not our destiny.
I've heard that before,
Yeah.
but I've never really understood what it actually means.
Well, it means that our thoughts, our beliefs, the things we go through, they can actually switch genes on or off. And that actually influences our health and well-being.
Wow. So are you saying we're not just stuck with whatever genes we inherited? Like we have the power to change how our genes work?
Exactly. And one of the biggest factors that influences this is stress. So if we're chronically stressed, it keeps our bodies in this kind of like survival mode, and that takes away energy from healing and growth.
Oh, I see. So it's like our bodies are constantly on high alert, like ready for something bad to happen.
Mhm.
And because of that, we don't have the energy to actually repair and rejuvenate.
Exactly. And while some stress is totally normal, too much of it for too long can really have a negative impact on our health. But the good news is cultivating those positive emotions, things like love, gratitude, joy, those can actually create a whole cascade of causative changes in the body. And that actually shifts us from that state of stress to a state of healing.
So it's not just about getting rid of stress. It's about actively trying to feel more positive emotions. Is that part of what Dispenza talks about in his model of transformation?
Absolutely. He combines a lot of scientific principles with different meditation techniques, and he teaches people how to change their minds, and because of that, their bodies. And he says all of this happens from the inside out.
And he includes all these stories about people that have used these ideas to overcome some pretty huge challenges. It's
Yeah.
honestly pretty inspiring.
Wow, it's just amazing to think that we might actually have a lot more control over our health and well-being than we think we do. And speaking of control, it seems like a lot of what we've been talking about comes down to our ability to actually change our mindset. But how do we do that? I mean, so much of our thinking is just like habitual. It's unconscious. We don't even realize we're doing it.
Yeah, and that's where the practical stuff comes in. So Dr. Joe, he offers all kinds of different meditation techniques, and they're designed to help people tap into this power and like reprogram those subconscious beliefs so we can move away from limitation and towards possibility.
I like how you use the word reprogram because I remember you were saying earlier that like vividly imagining something can actually be almost as powerful as the real experience. That's right. And it really highlights this incredible potential of neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is this amazing ability of the brain to change and adapt throughout our lives. And Dr. Joe's suggesting that we can actually use our thoughts to rewire our brains so we can like heal and grow.
So what you're saying is when Dr. Joe talks about meditation, he's not just talking about, relaxing or reducing stress. He's saying it's a tool to create lasting changes in our minds and bodies.
Exactly. He wants people to use meditation to access that operating system of the subconscious mind, because that's where all those deep-seated beliefs and habits are.
Okay, I'm with you. So let's get into some details here. What are some of the key steps in Dr. Dispenza's meditation techniques?
So one of the most important things he talks about is quieting the analytical mind. That constant stream of thoughts and judgments and worries that just keep us stuck in our heads.
Oh yeah, you mean like that voice that's constantly telling us we're not good enough or that we're never going to reach our goals?
Yeah, exactly. It's that voice of fear and limitation. And it can be really hard to get rid of. But the good news is it doesn't have to control us.
Okay, but how do we actually quiet that voice? Like sometimes it just takes over completely. How do we get out of our heads and into a state where we're actually open to change and healing?
Well, there are a lot of different techniques, and it's really about finding what works best for you. So some people find it helpful to focus on their breathing. Other people might prefer guided visualizations or maybe repeating mantras. The key is just to find something that you connect with and then be patient. It takes time.
It's like learning to play a musical instrument or something. You can feel really awkward and frustrating at first, but if you keep practicing, you eventually start to get better at it.
That's a great analogy. And just like with any skill, the more you practice quieting the mind, the better you get at it. And as you start to make progress, you can begin to access those deeper brainwave states, like alpha and theta. And those are the states that are associated with relaxation, creativity, and being more open to suggestions.
So basically, when we quiet down the conscious mind, it creates space for the subconscious mind to become more receptive to new ideas and possibilities.
Exactly. It's like you're opening up this door to the control panel of your subconscious, and then you can start to rewrite those old programs that aren't helping you anymore.
This is where visualization comes in, right?
Yeah. Dr. Joe encourages people to really create this vivid mental picture of what they want their future to look like. And it's important to engage all your senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, touch.
So instead of just thinking, I want to be healthy, we would actually imagine ourselves like walking through a forest, feeling the air on our skin, smelling the trees, hearing the birds, and really feeling that sense of vitality and well-being in our bodies.
Yeah, that's a great example. The more vivid and detailed the visualization is, the more powerful of an impact it has on the subconscious mind.
And you were talking about the importance of not just visualizing the outcome, but actually feeling the emotions of that change.
That's really important. You want to try to feel the emotions as if that change has already happened, like the joy, the gratitude, the peace, the sense of accomplishment.
Because our emotions are really powerful. They tell our bodies what we believe.
Exactly. And by combining those vivid images with powerful emotions, we're sending a super strong message to our subconscious mind. We're saying, this is the reality I want. This is who I'm becoming.
It's not just thinking it, it's feeling it. It's like we're actually stepping into that desired reality with our whole being, even if it's not quite there in the physical world yet.
That's right. And it takes practice. It's not always easy to stay that focused, especially when those old thought patterns and feelings start to come back.
I guess it's kind of like training a muscle. You need time and consistency to build strength and endurance.
That's a great way to put it. And just like you wouldn't expect to run a marathon without training for it, we shouldn't expect to completely transform our minds and bodies overnight. It takes consistent effort, and we got to be patient with ourselves.
Okay, so we've talked about quieting the analytical mind, getting into those deeper brainwave states, using visualization, feeling the emotions of the change we want, and being patient with ourselves. Are there any other important techniques that Dr. Dispenza recommends?
Yeah, he also talks about letting go. So once you've set your intention and visualized what you want, you need to surrender to the process and trust that the universe is supporting you.
So it's about letting go of the need to control everything and just trusting that something bigger than us is guiding us.
Exactly. It's about having faith in the process, even if you don't see results right away. And it's about releasing any resistance that you might have to the change you're trying to create.
Yeah, I think sometimes we hold ourselves back without even realizing it. Like we might have these subconscious fears or limiting beliefs that sabotage us.
That's true. So letting go is all about releasing those fears and those beliefs and opening yourself up to the possibility of something new and amazing coming into your life.
It's about just surrendering to the flow of life and trusting that you're being guided in the right direction.
Exactly. And this can be a challenge because it means you have to step outside your comfort zone and embrace the unknown. But it's also really freeing.
You know, it's interesting because it seems like these techniques could be used for anything, not just our physical health.
Absolutely. You can use them to improve your relationships, your finances, your career, your creativity, anything you want to change. The principles are the same.
So, like, if someone's having problems in their relationship, they could visualize a future where they're communicating well with their partner,
Hmm.
where they feel loved and supported, and where there's this deep connection and intimacy.
Exactly. And they could try to feel those emotions like love, joy, and gratitude as if that were already happening in their lives.
And if someone feels stuck in their job, they could visualize themselves doing work that they actually love
Yeah,
and feeling fulfilled and inspired and like making a real difference in the world.
that's a great example. It's about using your imagination to create this picture of the future you want.
And then taking action to make that vision a reality. It's not about just waiting for things to change. It's about getting involved and creating the life you want.
Exactly. It's about using the power of the placebo effect to become the architect of your own destiny.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot in this section. We talked about the specifics of Dr. Dispenza's meditation techniques and how to actually use these principles in our lives. So as we move into the final part of our deep dive, what are some key things you want listeners to keep in mind?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is that we all have this natural ability to heal and transform ourselves. We're not stuck with whatever situation we're in. We actually have the power to change our minds, our bodies, and our lives.
That's a really powerful message. It's like a reminder that we're not just victims of our genes or our past. We actually have a choice.
Exactly. And the placebo effect really shows us that. When we believe something is possible, our bodies will often respond accordingly.
So it's not about tricking ourselves with some fake pill. It's about tapping into this deeper awareness where we can align our thoughts and beliefs and expectations with the reality we want to create.
And meditation gives us a way to reach that deeper awareness. It helps us quiet the mind, get into those deeper brainwave states, and reprogram our subconscious beliefs.
And what's really great is that anyone can do it. You don't have to be some kind of monk or mystic. It's a simple technique, but it can be life-changing.
And the more you practice, the better you get at it, and the more amazing the results can be.
So if you're ready to take charge of your health, your happiness, your whole life, I would say check out the power of the placebo effect. And try incorporating some meditation into your daily routine. You might be surprised at what you discover. I mean, it's just incredible to think that something as simple as like changing our thoughts and beliefs could have such a big impact on our health. And speaking of like really mind-blowing ideas, we've been kind of hinting at this connection between the placebo effect and quantum physics. And I know for some people that might seem like a pretty big jump.
Yeah, it's a connection that Dr. Joe really goes into in detail. And he's suggesting that the principles of quantum physics actually support this idea that our thoughts can influence reality.
Okay, I'll be honest, quantum physics is kind of out there for me. It's like subatomic particles and things that don't always seem to make sense. So how does it relate to something like, our health, which is so personal and real?
Well, one of the main principles of quantum physics is that everything in the universe is made up of energy.
So even solid things like this table or the chair I'm sitting on, they're actually just like vibrating energy fields.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting. Our consciousness, our thoughts, our emotions, they're all forms of energy too.
Oh, okay, now I see where you're going with this. So if everything is energy and our thoughts are energy, then it makes sense that our thoughts could affect the energy around us. And because of that, they could affect our reality.
Exactly. And what Dr. Joe's saying is that when we change our energy, like when we shift our consciousness by doing things like meditation, we can actually change our reality.
I mean, this idea that we can influence reality with our minds, it's like really empowering, but also a little scary. Is it really that simple? Can we just change our thoughts and that's it?
Well, it's not always easy, that's for sure. Our minds are super powerful, but they've also been kind of trained to think in certain ways over the years. But Dr. Joe says we can actually create new thought patterns, like new pathways in the brain, if we put in the effort and focus our intentions.
That takes us back to the meditation techniques we were talking about. Like when we quiet the mind and get into those deeper brainwave states and we focus on feeling good emotions, you said that we're actually raising our vibrational frequency.
That's right. We're shifting our energy to a higher level. And when our energy's high, we tend to attract more positive experiences into our lives.
So it's like we're becoming magnets for the things we want.
You could say that, yeah.
Yeah.
When we cultivate that positive, high-frequency energy, we're basically matching the vibration of the experiences we want to have.
So it's not just about thinking a few positive thoughts now and then. It's about creating a whole new way of being in the world, one that aligns with our best selves.
Exactly. It's about becoming conscious creators of our own reality. It's about realizing that we have way more power to shape our lives than we often think we do.
This is so inspiring, but I can also imagine it feeling a little overwhelming for some people. It's like a big shift in how we see things. To
Yeah.
go from feeling like we're stuck with whatever happens to us to realizing that we can actually change things.
It is a big shift, but I think it's a really hopeful message. It means we're not just, victims of our past or our genes. We can create a new reality for ourselves, a reality that really reflects what we want deep down and helps us reach our full potential.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the placebo effect and Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, let's bring it back to our listeners. So what does all of this mean for you? And why should you even care?
Because you have so much power inside of you, more than you might realize. You're not just watching your life happen, you're actually creating it. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your expectations, they're not just in your head, they're actually shaping your reality.
And if you're not happy with the reality you're living in right now, if you're struggling with your health or anything else, you can change it.
It all starts with changing how you think. It's about believing that things can be different, that you have the power to heal and transform yourself.
It's about quieting your mind, connecting with your heart, and making sure your energy is aligned with what you truly desire.
And then taking action, putting these ideas into practice every day, even if it's just for a few minutes.
Because even small changes, if you do them consistently, can lead to really big results.
It's not always going to be easy. There will be challenges, but it's a journey that's totally worth it.
So before we end this episode, I want to leave you with a little challenge. Pick one area of your life that you want to change. It could be your health, your relationships, your job, your money, anything.
And then start using what we talked about today. Quiet your mind. Picture what you want that outcome to look like. Really feel the emotions of that change like it's already happened. And then let go of needing to control everything. Just trust the process.
And see what happens. You might be amazed at what you're capable of creating. You have the power to build a new reality, one that truly reflects your deepest desires and helps you become your best self.
Remember, you are the placebo.
And that's it for our deep dive into Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. We hope you found this exploration interesting and that it's inspired you to tap into the power of your own mind. Until next time, keep on diving deep.